So once again, click on resubmit and the text box will open up. So state and local leaders. First of all 50 states, of course, and the territories each have their own governor to varying degrees of power. Probably one of the strongest governors would be Pennsylvania's, and some of the states, though, have very weak governors' positions like Texas. One of the ways you can tell if the governor is strong or not is how many other executives are there. In Pennsylvania, there's only three other ones besides the lieutenant governor, but in states like Texas, there might be a dozen different executives. So obviously, the more executives, and each of them have their own powers, the less the governor has. So Pennsylvania only has three other people, and so the governor has most of the power himself. The governor of Pennsylvania, of course, is commander in chief of the National Guard. He's in charge of the state police and PennDOT. He has his own cabinet, so he appoints secretaries to be in charge of things like the Department of Health, the Department of Education, Department of Transportation, and so on. And of course, these people have to be confirmed by the state Senate, just like they do in Washington, D.C. with the president's appointments. The governor also helps prepare the budget information for the General Assembly. He gives a state of the state address every year to the General Assembly as well. And he also is the point person when it comes to emergencies. So whether it's something like COVID or a tornado sweeps through the state or fires or anything like that, or a snowstorm, for instance, it's the governor who has the ability to make emergency decisions. Now, throughout the country, there's been some criticism of governors, so some of the state legislatures are challenging that and attempting to reverse some of those emergency powers. The governor is also has the ability to veto laws, of course, that are passed by the General Assembly, which they have to have a supermajority to override. And the governor is the typical representative in the face of Pennsylvania. The other offices that are included, of course, there's lieutenant governor, which is kind of like a vice president. In a way, the lieutenant governor is president of the state Senate. He can cast tie-breaking votes. And really, the only thing he's there for is to take over if something happens to the governor. The three positions that do have power are the auditor general, which is like a chief inspector. So, for instance, the current auditor general has scrutinized the fact that charter schools in Pennsylvania take a lot of money from public education school districts and has said that that needs to be challenged and inspected more often. The next position would be treasurer. They are in charge of collecting revenues and establishing the budget and making sure money is being spent properly. And then the last one would be the attorney general, which is the chief law enforcement officer. They are also the lead attorney for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and they are independent for a reason, because obviously they can investigate the attorney or the governor, for instance. Then there are the county officials. Pennsylvania is broken up into 67 counties altogether, each of them with their own form of government. And most of them are rural and have a three-person commission. So Crawford, Venango, and Warren counties each have 3 county commissioners. And they have at least one person of the minority party. And the way they're able to do that is when you go to vote for them, you can only vote for 2. So, for instance, Crawford County is overwhelmingly Republican. So most people vote for the 2 Republican candidates. And then since you can only vote for 2, one of the Democrats will also end up getting in. And some of the other counties, of course, are more populated, have complex systems. Erie County, for instance, and Allegheny County have county councils and a county executive, which kind of works like a mayor in a way. And Philadelphia County and Philadelphia City are one and the same. So the mayor and city council run the entire county of Philadelphia. Counties provide a number of services, like for the elderly, for instance, and county parks. And there are also a number of other officials elected at the county level. Each county has a sheriff, but in Pennsylvania, unlike other states, the sheriffs don't have a lot of power. They're in charge of the county jail. They deliver papers. Really, they're allowed to arrest someone if they're committing a crime right in front of them. But other than that, they have no investigatory powers in Pennsylvania. We also elect a coroner, which is in charge, of course, of determining cause of death and issuing death certificates. There's the prothonotary and the recorder of deeds and the clerk of courts. They're all in charge of different types of paperwork. The jury commissioner is obviously in charge of supervising the selection of juries. And other counties, of course, can have other positions based upon their population level. Treasurer, there's also auditors. They can have more than one depending on their population, and so on. Then the cities and boroughs. Cities and boroughs have usually a council and a mayor. And the mayor in some systems like Titusville is known as a weak mayor because they're not elected by the people. They are a member of city council, and the city council chooses one of their own to be the mayor, and the mayor simply presides over the meetings. They don't really have any special powers. In a weak mayor system in particular, they end up appointing a city manager to run the municipality on a day-to-day basis, and usually the city manager is the one with most of the power. All the other employees and committees report to the city manager. The other system that can exist is with a strong mayor, and this is more likely to occur, for instance, in bigger cities. But the strong mayor system, basically the mayor is like a little president. They can veto bills, for instance. They are in charge. They're the commander-in-chief of the police force and so on. The boroughs around here, they also have councils and mayors, but obviously there's a lot less services provided. Boroughs don't have to provide as many things like a paid fire department, for instance, and other types of services that exist. And then the rural areas have townships. And they elect supervisors. Most of them in this area have 3 supervisors. More populated ones can have more than that. And often in rural areas like this, they provide very few services, usually roads, often dirt roads. And they also, in some villages that are more populated, they might establish some type of water and sewage system at the most. And that's almost everything. Really, they don't do a whole lot of other services because it isn't necessary because of the lack of people. One thing that they can do that's important that cities and boroughs can also do is establish zoning laws. What people can do with buildings and property. For instance, in Cherry Tree Township, they just passed a moratorium on buildings. Anybody know what? In Cherry Tree Township? Solar farms, because there's a couple companies that are interested in doing that, about establishing large sea of solar panels. But of course, local landowners are concerned about decreasing the amount of farmland and so on, so they decided to put a hold on changing the zoning, which means that the township won't allow that property to be used for anything but farming at this time. So they do have some power over what people can do with their land, supposedly for safety and keeping things stable and the same. And the last one I mentioned would be school districts. Each school district elects a 9-member school board of directors team. It's obviously different in other states, but here, half of them are elected every 2 years, so 5 and 4. And they run the school district, but they are part-time, unpaid positions, so they hire usually a superintendent to run the school district on a daily basis. So those are the different types of state and local leaders that exist. And some of you, of course, might even be, is anybody related to a school board member or a township supervisor? Nobody? They usually have 1 or 2 in each class. But not anymore. Did you used to be related to somebody? Oh, yeah. Jackson Wansky? Yeah, okay. He was on there for a while. Yeah. So they're, average people in the community, and they probably do the most important work because they provide things like school that we come in contact with daily, but often, of course, they usually are ignored because people don't get excited about their local school board election like they do President of the United States. So go ahead and submit those 3 items if you have not already.